Angstrom Levy. One of Mark's arch-nemesis, Angstrom Levy, used his portal creation powers to save an alternate version of himself in Times Square. While Robot and the Immortal are killed by an evil Invincible, he takes his alternate self to a dock while the Guardians of the Globe handle an alien invasion. He reveals to his alternate self that they are many other versions of him. Next, he freed the Mauler twins from their imprisonment and took the duo to his lab. He asked the two to build him a machine that will allow him to get the knowledge of his alternate version into his own brain. They accept, but say they need more equipment. After the Mauler twins complete the project, Angstrom places the mind transfer device on his head until Invincible arrives. Angstrom would use his powers to summon several Maulers from other dimensions to keep Invincible from halting the process. He notices that the Maulers are attempting to kill Invincible, and he removes the device from his head. The result causes some Maulers to die and gives Angstrom a creased head and back. Angstrom would also lose some memory of the event. He leaves to a dimension to get his injury fixed and hoping to get revenge on Invincible. Using his extra-dimensional knowledge, Angstrom finds out Invincible's identity as Mark Grayson. He goes to Mark's house and captures Mark's mother and brother. He would then call Adam Eve and tell Mark of his family's condition. Angstrom would send Mark through a series of dimensions, threatening Debbie and Oliver. While Angstrom is distracted, Debbie attempts to hurt him by attacking him with a lamp. Angstrom is unaffected and breaks her arm. Angstrom goes to check on Mark, but Mark grabs him. Seeing what he has done, Mark crashes Angstrom through the Grayson house. The duo crash through a series of dimensions until they land in a wasteland. Angstrom threatens Mark's family, and an enraged Mark beats him to death. However, it is revealed that Angstrom had survived the encounter, albeit with an even more disfigured face, preparing new schemes. Immortal. In a possible future timeline of Invincible, the Immortal, once Earth's most steadfast protector, becomes a tragic tyrant. Long after Mark Grayson departs the planet with his family, he entrusts Immortal with the one burden no one else could bear: the throne of Earth. Immortal accepts. For centuries he ruled with wisdom and restraint, preserving peace in a world. But immortality proves to be a curse. He watches every friend, every family, every generation wither and die while his duty never ends. The endless weight of time and responsibility fractures his mind. Resentment turns to despair, and despair to cruelty. In a desperate, unspoken plea to force Mark to return and release him from the throne, he reshapes Earth into a totalitarian regime, erasing cities, silencing dissent, and enforcing his will through legions of robotic enforcers. A resistance rises. When their attempt to assassinate him fails, they bring a version of Mark from the past into this broken future. The Immortal, no longer sane, mistakes him for the Mark he remembers, believing him still weakened by Scourge virus, and finally voices his true wish: death. He begs to be freed from the endless role that has hollowed him out. Mark refuses to become an executioner until the Immortal forces his hand by threatening the lives of others. In the final confrontation, Mark ends his suffering, beheading the man. Conquest. After the end of the Invincible War, Mark was displeased by the destruction caused by his alternate variants. He leaned on a pillar, hand pressed to the wall, head resting on his arm, overwhelmed with guilt. Suddenly, an unexpected figure appeared: Conquest. With a growling face, he confronted Mark, asking whether he had prepared Earth for their arrival or not. Disturbed by the recent events, Mark showed a desire to hit something hard. Conquest willingly accepted, and both of them launched toward each other. Conquest was strong and experienced. He beat Mark like a dog. Every punch he landed reminded Mark that he was beneath him. Miles away, Oliver watched the scene on TV, his elder brother getting beaten by the old dude. He got up, wore the suit, soared toward them, and pushed him. Now, both of them were being overwhelmed by Conquest. On top of that, Eve woke up from her hospital bed and arrived at the battle. She tried to stop him, but Conquest pierced her body. This event broke Mark so deeply that he took an oath to end his life. His adrenaline spiked so high that, at that moment, he was able to break Conquest's metallic arm. Rage in his eyes, Mark fought like an animal. Meanwhile, Eve's body started to recover and launched a destructive beam, burning Conquest's whole body. Still, it was not enough. Mark stepped in to finish the job. He repeatedly headbutted Conquest until he died. Later, Mark and his gang, on the ship getting ready for war, were suddenly sabotaged by Viltrumites. One of them was Conquest, who had survived thanks to Cecil. Oliver rushed to attack but got a slap in his face. He was out of air, so he went to a nearby planet to get some. Conquest chased him to eliminate him since he was the weakest. Mark raced toward them and slammed him onto the ground. He choked Conquest with his bare hands. Conquest smirked for a while, but when he ran out of breath, he felt uneasy. Out of desperation, he punched Mark so hard that it pierced through his body, yet his hands stuck like glue. This time, Mark ended his life for real. Rus Livingston, a team of astronauts went to Mars in order to study the planet. Rus was taken prisoner by Monarch Prime, along with his colleagues because they could become host to the Sequids, a psychic slave race on Mars. When Invincible rescued his team, he was accidentally left on Mars when an imposter took his place. Livingston was then forced to become the living nexus of the minds of the Sequids when they bonded to him. Rus and the Sequids then took a Martian starship and left for Earth. Rus attacked Invincible and the Guardians when they boarded the ship. The Guardians and Invincible eventually defeated the Sequids and rescued Rus, who was taken back to Earth. After returning to his house, Rus started to cough and puked several Sequids, who immediately took back control of his body and swore to conquer Earth. After some preparation, he executed his mission. All the superheroes struggled to defeat him. Even Mark seemed helpless. Gradually, frustration hits Mark, and then he strikes a final blow, ripping Rus Livingston's head. Dinosaurus initially opposes Mark, arguing that using superpowers to instantly rebuild destroyed cities would prevent the global economy from naturally booming through reconstruction. Mark defeats him and has him taken into custody by the Guardians. After escaping, Dinosaurus destroys Las Vegas, proving how far he's willing to go for his greater good logic. His human form, David Anders, later surrenders and reveals he only becomes Dinosaurus when he's bored or intellectually unstimulated. Mark, intrigued and increasingly morally conflicted, breaks him out, and the two form a controversial partnership to solve world-scale problems through extreme methods. Together, they kill Omnipotus after he defeats the Guardians. Attempt large-scale utilitarian plans to reshape Earth. Work to save Mark when he's infected with the Scourge virus, even infiltrating a Viltrumite ship where Dinosaurus confronts Thragg and helps Mark escape. However, Dinosaurus continues escalating, planting global bombs, including a catastrophic plan to flood major cities by detonating one in Greenland. Exploits Mark's inner ear weakness, puts him in a coma, and fakes Mark's public death to operate freely. When Mark recovers, he finally accepts that Dinosaurus caused massive suffering based only on theoretical future benefits. Dinosaurus himself realizes Mark is right and that his logic has gone too far. In his final act, Dinosaurus refuses to undo the damage, asks Mark to kill him to prevent future atrocities. Mark executes him and marks the body so Cecil cannot secretly revive him. Thragg's children. John Lively once said, "All is fair in love and war." Mark, who once believed firmly in no-kill policy, eventually crossed that line when his daughter was threatened to be killed by Thragg. He even went so far as to literally tear off Onun's head. After Oliver's death, Mark had finally had enough and decided to strike back against Thragg. In the process, he killed hundreds of Thragg's children. Because they were not as strong as him, they were ultimately doomed. Thragg. Thragg was born on Viltrum as the son of one of the closest advisors of Emperor Argal. He was trained in all manners of combat and bred to be the strongest Viltrumite. After Argal was killed by Thetis, Thragg fought in the Viltrumite Civil War to restore order to the Empire, meaning Thragg is thousands of years old. After the battle, the Viltrumites would emerge an unbeatable race led by him. Thragg would be granted the title of Grand Regent, tasked with finding the heir of Argal. He would keep Argal's skull as a reminder of what would happen were the Empire to fall into disarray. The Scourge virus would be created and the planet's population severely depleted, and would make him believe that the heir had died. Afterwards, he would cease all attempts to find the heir, feeling that he had earned his place among them. Nolan fights Thragg but is completely overpowered. Thragg headbutts and breaks his hand, then rips out Nolan's heart and leaves him for dead despite Nolan's defiance. Enraged, Mark attacks, but Thragg initially dominates and even uses his own children as living projectiles, which only causes them to splatter against Mark. Mark then drags Thragg into the sun, forcing a brutal final showdown in the extreme heat. While their bodies burn away, Thragg reveals he is driven by revenge and his belief that he deserved to rule the Viltrumite Empire. Mark condemns him for clinging to the old destructive Viltrumite ways that nearly caused their extinction. A robot armor briefly reaches Mark and gives him extra protection, allowing him to gain the advantage as Thragg continues to weaken. The armor eventually melts and both are reduced to near unrecognizable forms. In a last desperate move, Thragg breaks Mark's arms, but Mark kills him by tearing out his throat with his teeth. Mark is ready to die from his injuries, but Alan arrives and rescues him, leaving Thragg's body to be consumed by the sun. With Thragg gone, the Viltrumites are finally free to move forward and become a force for good under Mark's leadership. Rex Robot. After the final battle with Thragg, peace didn't bring certainty. Robot was convinced that Mark would turn against him when he becomes an emperor, so he abducted Viltrumite's children and lured them against Mark. Eve sought help from Ursal to stop the civil war. Mark searched for Robot. He was among them, hidden in the countless identical drones. When Mark spotted him, he took him in space, far from Earth, far from everyone. They had a talk. Mark knew that Robot was doing good, but he was afraid of Robot being corrupted. He was aware of the fact that absolute power corrupts people. His experience with Dinosaurus showed him what a genius becomes when they lose their mind. So he decided to kill his body, but saved his brain. Robot would never again have the power to rule the world by force, but his mind, his brilliance, would live on, guiding the Immortal as Earth's advisor. Mark didn't kill him completely. He let his consciousness live but killed his physical body.